they had some horrendous flavours behind them. They didn't flavour them, but the pigments they were using and all the other kind of chemicals that they were using to make them were perfectly safe, but they were horrible. They were like the black ink was something special.
Probably to discourage you putting it in your mouth in the first place.
Yeah, I think it doesn't work. It's not something you should do. I wouldn't really recommend licking your brushes. I do it because it allows, after you've washed it, I can then put a point on it without actually having to do stuff. And yeah, as I say, I don't know. That's something I've done.
The paint out the corner.
Yeah, after I've been painting all day and I've done multiple colours, I'll end up with this like slight blurred poo stain on the corner of my mouth. And then forget I've done it and then go out into town or something and people are looking at you a bit funny. You're like, what? What have I done? Don't mind the hand is fine because I can explain that. But when it looks like you're dribbling birds, like Radagast the Brown out of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
No.
Well, he's in both, but yeah, he was really cool. Right, let's move that. It's now finished, so I won't paint the cup. Right, you can now paint the cloak, obviously.
Yep.
I very banana coloured.
That's fine, actually. That's quite a nice colour because we're now going to ink it again.
Yeah.
We're going to ink the whole model again, and we're going to be a bit thicker with the ink this time. So yeah. You could quite happily leave it like this and maybe paint the claws a different colour and then paint the beak and the eyes. You could quite happily leave it like this with just a few extra finishing details, but we're going to take it that next step just to show you how you can take it that next step. I'm going to bring out one of my other paints because consistency wise these inks are a little bit too thick, I think. They're a wash. I'm going to give you the second ultimate Games Workshop one, Agrax Earth Shade. If I did bring it. If we notice, it's a lot thinner. It's quite liquidy compared to these, which were quite thick. These are pretty similar to what we were talking about this off camera a minute ago about dipping. These are quite similar consistencies to what that kind of stuff is. So it's quite thick and it's quite easy to stay on the model. It won't drip and it won't pool, but if you want to use it properly you will need to water it down. These I generally find you don't need to water down, so I'll quickly just... The wonderful pots of Games Workshop would sometimes stay up and sometimes don't. So what we can do with this, I will use this straight out of the pot. So I'll take the bigger brush here. I will use this straight out of the pot, load the brush up completely, like there's quite a lot on here, it doesn't matter, and then it's just literally splodge. Yeah. Don't thin it out too much, so yeah, so you actually see the dark colours on there, so it kind of comes out like that. Yeah? Yeah. And that's what you're going to do with it. These are not the most stable of pots. I have spent a lot of money replacing these because I've knocked them over. So just be a bit aware with that, and I'll give you the extra paint actually while I'm doing that. And again, these really do have to be shaken. If you don't shake Games Workshop paints, they will shine, or you will end up with white residue as well. So if you don't shake it and you put it on quite thick, it can leave white residue in the recesses, which is the silicates pooling. It's easy to get rid of afterwards, so once it's dry you then go in with a wet brush and you can get rid of it, but it's best not to get that point. What you can do with these, if they don't stay open, because they don't always stay open, is you find a brush and you just stick a brush in there like that and it stays open. My Nuln Oil does not stay open, so but yeah, these are really liquidy. Don't knock them over because they will go everywhere. And then you go, and you need a brush back.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, just straight from the pot, straight onto the model. you know what you're doing, painting
Yeah.
red.
I think that's good red.
Yeah, we've got multiple reds over here. We've got that crimson one, which has actually, don't know whether it's dry or not, but it's kind of left a thick, bloody texture there. So it's quite thick paint, which is quite nice. We've also got cobalt red, which is really deep, dried blood kind of red. Cambion crimson, which is a bright red.
I think it's a little darker than this one, maybe.
We've got that. So let's have a look. Yeah, so Dragonfire red, yeah, this is kind of a more orangey red, this is a deeper red, so
Yeah, I think I'll go with the deeper
a
red.
deeper red. The crimson is much nicer than that. This, I would use this as a highlight stage.
Mm.
We'll just leave that there. I will continue with my edging. This hasn't dried out, no, it hasn't, good, right. So this is not going to be a neat model, but trying to make things pop a little bit. And again, edging, well not edging, this is kind of like fine lining. It's the same idea as what we're doing with the silver bits. Do it in one quick smooth motion. You will need to be using the edge of the tip of the brush for this. It's not the same technique as edge highlighting. Edge highlighting, you can use the edge of the brush. But if you can be really quite a thin paint and be quite smooth with the way you use the brush, you can get the lines in quite nicely. The thinner the paint is for this, the better. It's a bit warm in here, so the paint's drying for me. I tend to hold my breath sometimes when I'm doing detail as well, so let's just add in some detail here. Probably should have brought my wet palette down, but whatever. Right, so that's the front of him done. With the, I think, do a little bit of mad washing with just paint here. Really water that down. One of the things you can do, especially with mucky models like this, is if we get like a black wash the whole thing, and it looks, oh, it's got really dark. Just run your hand over it like that, and you kind of get an oily shade on it, and it just takes it off and leaves the paint in the recesses, and instantaneously that looks a lot better. So you can just kind of get really black paint. So let's find another bit we can do it on. We're going to do it on this bit here, kind of on here, so it'll go really, really dark. Like, oh my god, lots of black paint all over it. Ah, that's horrible. Right, let's get my finger on it. And then suddenly I've got a really nicely recessed joint. And it is, again, it's not being precious about the paint. So it goes on quite messy, and then I just rub it off with my finger. And it looks quite nice. This is sometimes a bonus of doing it with paints rather than inks. It rubs off a little bit better with paint, whereas inks are designed to stick to the model. Whereas paints weirdly don't stick to the model very well. So we're going to fine line the goggles a bit more, and then we'll go into another colour. I might start doing the claptrap colours just to make the model look a little bit more interesting than just gold at the moment. So we're not aiming for something brilliant today. Just something nice and quick that shows you a few different techniques. What some people do, instead of using black paint to fine line, is they'll actually go out and buy a black fine liner pen and run around with a fine liner pen. So if you've not got silly hands for a paintbrush, go to your local art supply store, buy a black fine liner pen, get a really small one, like a 0.05 or something, and you can actually just draw in the lines. And it gives you that little bit extra control over when you paint. Until you get that kind of brush control and the trains your hand as how to move. It's quite a nice little trick to actually go out and, rather than learn how to paint, just cheat. Anything that helps you in cheating with painting and stuff is fair game in my book. Right, so just doing some touches up on some other bits. That's what I was going to do. One more thing on this handle. Do this. Let's make sure this goes on. So here we've got the handle of the hammer, nice and thick, just bump, bump. Not being too pokey with it, just covering the handle. Bum, bum, bum. Just like that. Same thing with the saw. So always going to have a black. Going to leave it rusty as an actual blade, but the top of it, it's a nice long flat piece here. So it's just like on, straight down, edge, on, straight down. Can't see because I'm angling it wrong, so they don't quite work, but just straight down. I have not hit the actual saw, but it's still got that black edge on it. So it's just on, down. A lot of it's to do with the consistency of the paint as well, so thicker the paint is, the less likely it's going to go on nicely. I suppose I probably could have done wood on the saw, but I can pick that out later if I want to. Right, let's have a look at him.
Sticky and wet.
Yeah, you will be. Yeah. We'll leave him to dry because I'm a bit scared about using that thing now because I just melted everything. But he's drying alright. Generally inks take quite a while to dry, so if you've inked an entire model like this is your cup of tea point. Go get yourself a nice cup of tea. Go toilet break or whatever. So this guy is now pretty much, he's at a tabletop standard if you wanted to, but we're going to give him that little bit extra and pop out some of the details on him. So what have we been here? We've been here for what, about an hour? Oh no, it's like, we've been here ages.
Where are you talking, not just paintings?
Yeah. So this, I would have to put this on a table for a game. And that's what, I put like 4 colours on this. But I think it looks alright for a tabletop, especially for a D&D campaign because we're not looking to create display pieces. The wheel needs probably some silver on it for the little treads on it, but you can quite easily get away with this. But what we're going to do is going to pick out some of the details on it, and we're going to claptrap him up a little bit. We're going to obviously do the beak and the eyes on him, and the claws and the base. What we can do? What kind of base do you want with him? How do you want his base to look?
Rocks already looked on Round's modded in.
I didn't bring any of my basing material, so we're just going to have to paint a base.
Yeah.
That's already got base on it, this doesn't. So, rocks. What colour are rocks? Here's a good question. What colour do we think rocks should be? I guarantee you'll probably get it wrong.
Because the typical eyes is going to be grey.
Yeah.
Grey brown.
Grey brown, but there's definitely browns
Brown.
in there.
Brown. Whenever I paint rocks, I go for a brown. I paint them brown first. So that base, find a brown that you like. I'd probably say owlbear brown again.
Yeah. Coat it.
coat it. So thin it down a little bit,
Yeah.
but not too much because we're actually looking to actually paint it this time.
Yeah.
Paint the entire base brown, and then we'll bring in the greys and the
Some
blacks. You can put greens and you can put purples into it. If you actually go out to your garden or go outside and just actually look at rocks, we've got loads outside. We've got trees and things as well. It's a really nice area, this. Rocks aren't grey. Rocks, especially in nature, they contain lichens, they contain moss, they have all sorts of different colours in them. So look at what is, have a reference material for it. There's no reference material for this because it's a fantasy creature, but things like owl bears, get pictures of owls, get pictures of bears, see what colours are natural there. All the ones that I did for the Kickstarter, I had a picture next to me sat on my phone, so it wasn't a brilliant pic, it wasn't like any kind of research, I just googled snowy owl and then left it on my phone. I had to kind of tweak the snowy owl a little bit because they were all just white, so I found some which had like actual black bits in them. It's actually based on a real owl that I found, so just made it a bit more interesting. So we're going to make this guy a little bit more interesting now. We're going to do the claptrappy stuff, so then we can do a bit of weathering with this as well, to show another kind of thing on it. So yellow, claptrap has yellow on him. We're also probably going to need another colour as well. I'll find that in a bit. So we're not going to make that entire thing claptrappy. Now yellow is one of my least favourite colours, along with white, because it doesn't cover very well. But we don't want it to cover so well here. But he's got 3 bands across his chest, this dude, and we're going to go yellow, white, yellow, or yellow kind of ivory yellow, because claptrap has those colours on him. So, and we're going to try and make it maybe a little bit silvery. This yellow is a typical yellow. It's a bit of a weird texture, a weird consistency. For some reason yellow paints are odd. They always have a slight sheen to them. They're slightly weirdly clear, so they kind of look a bit weird. They're not my favourite colour. Generally you try and put a white underneath them first, but I'm going to leave it bronze underneath and darker so it doesn't pop too much. I don't want it to pop too much, so it will just look a bit odd on the model. Right, that's worked quite well there. Let's make sure I'm not being too neat with this because he is going to get a bit of weathering and a bit of scratches on it because he's old and rusty. But we just want the base colour down straight away. This could even be warning stripes, so you could do a black and yellow stripes on it as well, just to throw in a bit of weirdness with it. Make sure with this, he's got the bands go all the way around the actual body. Makes it a little bit hard and a bit fiddly, but if you carry the colour around and don't stop, it will make it look a little bit more complete as a model. Some people only do the bits they can actually do quite easily. If you can get your brush around to do it because it'll add that extra bit in. It will teach you the patience and the brush control to actually be able to then at some point go the next step further. So there's a little bit there. There we go. There's a bit of yellow. Let's make that a little bit brighter down here. Right. Is there a daisy? Yes, there is. Cool. So there, we've got a bit of yellow on him. It just kind of makes it stand out a little bit. Makes it less than one colour. Always try and pick a colour that will give it a point of focus. So as much as this is a machine, and it was good before I put the yellow on it, it was very much one colour, very much bland. Now I'm giving it a point colour, kind of an extra colour on top of it, just to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm going to steal that one. Right. Yeah, well, that's quite watery. Now you've done something that I occasionally do, put too much water in the paint. So we will try and not destroy it, get the power going out.
Well, his top's still wet anyway, so.
Okay. Right. I'll hold far enough away. Obviously with hairdryers you can get a bit closer, but this thing is hot. Right, so we'll get on with doing the face on that. We just had a quick chat off camera. We're going to do, on here we're going to do, like, we've got the black going around the top of the eyes and stuff. We'll do some of that. We'll paint the nose, not the nose, the beak, and the eyes. Don't tell him I said that, he'll bite my face off. Nice Albert, nice Albert. Friend Albert. Don't kill me. We could do the white down there. With some dry brushing if we wanted to. It depends on time. We're going for a lot longer than usual because we're talking a lot, and we're going to do some washing on that. So we'll start with the washes first because they take longer to dry. We have the shadow wash, so we're going to do 2 washes on this guy. The shadow wash for the cloaks and the armours and anything that's not skin, and then we're going to do a flesh wash on the skin. We can try the flesh wash on here, see what that looks like. Generally you want something slightly reddish for a skin flesh wash.
Yeah.
I would recommend not doing them at the same time because they are watery. Putting 2 water things next together, they will mix. So I would probably suggest, so I always do skin last because I hate skin. Do the black first and then we'll dry it.
Yeah.
And then do the flesh wash last. These paints, as I say, these will need watering down because they're quite thick. And then just see what it looks like at the end of it. If we'll have a look at it, see if it's all right. If not, we'll add a bit more onto it. With the owlbear, we will do the beak and the eyes first. Now, eyes, generally people think they go white with eyes. That's too bright. If you actually look at your eyes yourself, they're not white. We have veins, we have all sorts going on. They're actually quite dull white. They're an off-white colour. So I would use an off-white or a slightly ivory beigey colour. So I'd probably go with this one here and do a couple of thin coats on it.
Yeah.
And with the beak, you could go straight yellow, but it's not going to go straight over on that paint. So I'd probably go for the goblin one, or whatever this one is the, no, this one,
the brown.
the one we can't pronounce. Or yeah, you could do rosy skin as well, because again, bones aren't the same colour.
Yeah.
And you've also got the claws on the beastie at the bottom. Do those, whatever that one is.
Yeah, skin.
The skin colour, because bones, and then you can make them look realistic with another wash or something if you wanted to, or even that colour. I'm going to continue the belt on this guy, and then do the goggles, and do the tyre because I forgot about the tyre. And then I don't think we need to do any weathering on the yellow because it's actually kind of worked. Actually, I do need eyeball that one as well. So I'll take a little bit. So just paint the middle bit on this, again, kind of give it that hint of danger stripes or claptrappiness that I think he looks like. I'm just going to break up the brassy gold that's on him. Might actually, yeah, so there's that. It's probably a little bit bright, so we might just get some black. Still got some left on my palette here. And let's just see if we can kind of do some stripes in it. Just to break up that brightness that I just want. Yeah, that's actually kind of cool. With models like this where there is no set paint scheme, some people struggle with how to do it. Just put paint on and see what happens. Think about how you imagine it. Put those colours on. If it looks right, it looks right. If not, paint over it. It takes a while to get used to the idea of painting something that doesn't actually have a paint scheme, because no one's actually telling you what colours should be. So a lot of people stress over it. I used to stress over it, but now I really enjoy it because it gives you more freedom. So things like Space Marines, if I was going to paint a Space Marine, I would prefer to go my own chapter because it allows me a lot more freedom and entertainment with the painting than going down the Blood Angels or Space Wolves kind of route. So just don't be afraid to experiment. Have fun with the painting. It's part of the hobby. Enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, then don't do it. As soon as you stop enjoying painting a model, stop, because you'll mess it up. This guy has lots of character. I could go for hours on this guy. We have done, but yeah. Right, so little things like the top of the hammer here, I just missed where the handle comes through. But if we paint that, it just again adds that extra little bit of detail to it. I'm not liking the leather on this at the moment, so I might do something with the leather later. It looks too much like the brass. Right, so we've done his chest. Just added that little bit of extra kind of standout detail on his chest, just to make it pop a little bit better than just be flat gold all the way across. And I gave him the danger stripes because the ivory colour that I just put on was a bit too bright. So I think it suits it. But yeah, right, I'm going to do the goggles. What colour should we do the goggles? Eyepieces. Eyepieces on goggles, what do we reckon?
The actual lens.
So yeah, these two. Don't know what to do them. I was thinking blue, but that's a bit too bright. I'll do a dark blue.
Dark blue or silvery blue?
Is it ethereal blue?
Ethereal
It's
blue.
white, or there's the gelatinous, but that might be a white.
That, no, that will actually
It looks a
hopefully.
bit more like glass than.
Yeah, because I could do point highlights, possibly if I can actually get point highlights, or a crack. I think it could do with a blue. What's your actually? Let's have a look at these two together. Let's try Underdark Indigo as one of them, and I think the one which is popping out I'll do as a kind of a night vision goggle green kind of effect. I can't actually open this paint. What I tend to do as well, I try to do, and they've rubbed off on a lot of these, is when I get a paint pot like this and you go, oh it looks nice but I don't know what colour it's going to dry, put it on there, paint the top of it. And so when you know, when it dries, you know what colour it's going to dry. Because paints do not dry the same colour they are in the pot. So you've got, this is, what colour is this? This is medium sea grey, so that's what it looks like in the pot, and then it dries quite a flat, darker grey. I've got saddle brown, which is quite a nice leathery colour here, but again is darker, so sometimes they'll dry darker, sometimes they'll dry lighter. German camo orange ochre, again amazing colours, looks like that but dries like that, so it's always nice to have that. And then also, if you've got a big tray like this, you don't have to search through the trays, you just look at the top of the model. So GW paints are not as easy because they come in the little pots which you can see through, but a bit harder to actually paint on top of them. So let's see if we can paint this eye piece thing here. See if we can put a crack in it maybe as well. Wait a minute. And you need just edge highlighting, that's what is missing on this in certain places. I think we need to get the silver out again. Right, so we'll leave that to dry. Let's see what colour we can get. That's dry, like proper luminous. Halloween day glow green. Right, let's try Fade Wild Emerald for the other eye. Again, I'm not generally watering these paints down too much. Consistency of this is quite nice. Some nice vibrant colours. They're going on quite well, these paints. Quite enjoying them, quite nicely. Some really interesting colours in there. Really good for a fantasy. Really good base fantasy paint colour set. Probably not so good for maybe your sci-fi or your military kind of stuff. But if you're looking at fantasy, high fantasy, or just really bright, weird fantasy, there's some nice colours in there. Some nice purples and oranges. If I can get my paintbrush to work. Right. Where we need to go with this? We'll do that later. So I can leave the eyes like that on the top of him. If you look at the rest of him, they don't quite fit. They're a bit too bright, a bit too flat as colours. So again, I'll just get the black that I've still got some left off over here and try and give them a bit of a wash of the black to tone them down a little bit. And then I don't think I'm going to do the point highlights on them because the model is not bright enough for that. So just black paint, lots of water, and then just kind of tone it down a little bit. Not enough water. The black washes with black paint is really good because it dries quicker than an ink, and it just softens off the colours a little bit. So there we go. Yeah, I think I need a bit of silver in some places on this, and something to do with some of the black to make it less black. But again, you could just leave it like this. I'd be happy with that on the table. I really do need to paint the wheel though, because it's bugging me. But right, so you done with the black?
I believe so.
Let's have a look. Right, what I would do, can I have the black wherever it is? Let's just actually see it because I can't remember the consistencies of this. So just show you how I would do this because you've missed the top of the tabard,
Right.
or the chainmail. So it's alright. So what we'd do, or what I'd do, with these as a wash. Bit of water in these because these are quite thick, and it is just whack it over. Don't be, again, there's one thing I can honestly say, don't be neat. Even if you get it on the skin, it's alright. One thing with washes as well, if we look at there's the join between the skin and the cloak on the edge here. Run the wash along that join, and it just creates that fine line of shadow straight away. Same with the metals down here. Just at this level, splodging on the ink thickly is not an issue. The only problem that it creates is drying time. That's why we have the big heat gun down there that melts things. We'll try and not melt the model. So it's just stuff like that. If you want to, again, happily with this, as an extra level, looking at the cloak, there's a lot of folds in the cloak on the back. Keep the ink a little bit thicker, and then just run it into the actual folds itself, so that it stays in the folds. So that's what we want. We want the shadows in the folds. So there we go, just instantly into the folds.
Yeah.
And then we leave it like that, and that's it. I think, yeah, it's running off the top a little bit of the chest.
Yeah, I think that was the issue. I did put a bit on, but
yeah, it's running off. So that's the main issue with inks when you water them down, is they run off. So we are going to get the hot gun, the big gun on this guy, because I just put a load on, and it'll stop it pooling on the cloak as well. So one of the biggest things I find with inks on cloaks is you get this when you paint it, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And then you leave it to dry, and then you turn around, it's like, why is it all at the bottom in this horrible splodge? And so hair dries, and you will heat your hand up quite badly. So
especially with the heat gun.
yeah, it's quite fun this. Ow, ow, ow. Yeah, that's right enough. Right, again, just splodge on the flesh wash. Can I just actually see what this flesh wash looks like?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a bit of silver on my paint palette here. So we're looking at a skin. So I'm going to put this on the silver just to see what it looks like on the silver, so I can see the colour of it. It looks a little bit. No, that'll be fine. That'll be brilliant for skin actually.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, tasty. You doing the eyes? Got very quiet over there.
Yeah, no, I did the eye and it's not quite as smooth as...
Eyes are brilliant. So the trick to eyes is, again, it's not so much about actually being patient. So can I see what you've done here? Yeah, brilliant. You actually left the line around the darkness around it. You can do that if your hand's not steady enough or the model is too small. Don't worry about. So I don't know if you can zoom in on this. If we look at the eye, she's not painted the whole eye, so there's been left a really dark bit around it, which is good because it shows the depth of the eye. If you can't leave that yourself, paint the whole thing, and even getting into the corners with it, and then get a thin wash of black paint and wash the eye. So if you're using a lighter colour, wash it, and then it will create that natural shadow. So that's one of the tricks with eyes, is you don't have to be neat. The hard part now is putting the pupils in, but the owlbears kind of look scary. They're scary monsters, and if you just kind of leave the pupils out, they're looking scary. It's up to you whether you want to put them in. We'll come to that at the end. It's the last thing we'll do. Yeah. He's got a tongue.
Yes, he has. I'm going to get the pink out some.
You're going to go...
Or a decent pinky
Well, we've got bright pink.
That might be a bit too bright.
Yeah.
I might need the red that's over there somewhere.
The really bright red. The dragon fire red, yeah, that's a nice red. And then we'll kind of do the feathers as well. The black is around here. Oh, it's over there.
No, you got it over there.
No, I put it over here somewhere. We did have it. It's there.
Ah.
Is that it? Yes.
Yeah.
We did have it. Right, what am I going to do? What do I want to do? I'm going to do some edge highlighting because everybody loves edge highlighting. So we're going to take this blue, gelatinous blue. So if you've got any gelatinous cubes in your campaign, run. So here's some of this. That's where your animal critters just suddenly disappear. It's like, I'm sure I had a companion at some point. And you see this piece of jelly walking off in the distance with your cat stuck in the middle of it. Right, so edge highlighting. This isn't really edge highlighting, but I've got the black on the sword. It's just looking a bit flat. So I'm going to give it a highlight along the edges of the black. So it's the same thing we did when we actually painted the black, where we just did one long stroke. We're going to do the same thing, but this is going to hit the edge, the actual corner of it, rather than the flat edges. So I've got quite a thin paint here, but let's see if we can do this here. So rather than holding it flat along the actual flat side, we're going to get to the edge, and we're just going to go straight along it like that. And it just gives it that little bit of an extra thing, pop to it. If you do this with a really thin paint, that looks quite extreme at the moment. If the paint was thin, when it dries it looks less extreme. I think I've left the paint a little bit too thick for this, but that's fine, because this is just as a quick demonstration kind of thing as what we're doing. Go over that one, like that. And I could, if I wanted to, come back and actually thin that out with some black paint, but I'm not going to. So, is that going to catch there? There we go. See, I'm trying to focus on the edge bits and actually go around the whole thing, so defined the edge around the actual whole bit. Just again, it gives it that extra little bit of detail. And then we've got the actual handle where it's holding it. We'll do some point edge highlights on here. So not the whole thing, not every single edge, but we'll just take the little bits which might catch the light along the top. Little bits which are stuck out. This probably should be wood, but it's black with little bits of metal in it now. So bottom gets there, which has some gold showing because I didn't paint the black thick enough. And so we cover those up with an edge highlight. This isn't as detailed a paint job as I did on the rest of the models, because I'm just being quite quick with this. I'm just testing some things out and trying to show lots of different techniques. But there we go, so we've added in some extra highlights on that guy, on the saw, I wouldn't call it a sword. It makes it look less flat against the model. It's probably a bit too extreme, but if I wanted to, I've actually got some ink here, so what we'll do is we'll just kind of ink that, and instantaneously softens it up. I keep saying I'm going to paint the wheel, and never do actually paint the wheel. Right, I'm just going to do some. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Mixing some colours here. Let's make this a less bright gelatinous blue. So toning down the edge highlights. So the hammer on the back, screwdriver on the back, just kind of picking up the edges so they don't look like 2D objects, they kind of get a bit of depth to them. Have you finished with the skin washers?
Yeah.
Cool. I think he wants a tattoo on his head.
I think he does actually.
I really shouldn't have said that, because now I have to tell you how to do a tattoo. No, it's not too
No,
bad.
I mean, he's got something on his head on there.
Oh, he's got, yeah, he has got, he has, oh. Yeah. Like a wound or something, but we can turn that into a tattoo, that's not going to be too. So you can do a bit of fine line work. I want a silver, because I'm going to do some edge highlighting with silver. And then I'm going to repaint them bits of it, because I'm not happy with the brown is too similar to the brass, so I'm going to change the browns on the leather. Right, so let's have a gander. Right, yeah. So again, it's something, this is tabletop ready. So all we've done here is we've just layered up the base colours. We're not worried about kind of any highlighting or shading. We've just put the base colours on that we thought the thing should be, and then given it a wash. It's probably taken longer than it should do because we've been sat here talking and doing lots of different things. But nice, quick, easy, tabletop ready model. Do the base, that's going to be painted probably grey and then wash black. This is stone. I know I said you should do brown, but this looks like
It's black stone, isn't it?
yeah, it's flat stone. So we could go on to some highlighting. just conscious of time. This video is probably running on quite long now. So the highlights that we do with this is just get the red back onto it and pick out the high points on the cloak. That's probably all I'd do with it. Or paint the high points on the face and the arms and the hands. You could put a black splodge, a black ink around the eyes to sink the eyes in with that. But I think what we can do is we will... It looks like he's got a bit of a David Bowie-esque strike down his face on there. So what we can do is we can give him a little bit of a lightning strike. So what we're going to do with that, before we do it on the model, we're going to practice it on here. And to do fine line work like this, lots of thin layers. So I will try to get this on camera as I show you how we do this. I'm going to put it on and move these out of the way so the actual board can be seen. So I've got my board here. Say we're going to do a white stripe lightning. The face is incredibly small, so I've got some paint here. So we're going to start off first practicing with this paint and get it really thin. I'm not sure how thin we can get it on cardboard, but there we go. That is really quite thin there. Start off big. So I'll take a black bit. Start off big. 1, 2. 2 lines. Okay. People will try and go 1, 2, 3. That will create a really large strike, and on such a small face, go 1, and then if you go up, it's gonna, you'll do some of the brush work, but then it will kind of move away. So if you can just go 1 and then move the brush across a little bit, and then just do 1 on top of it, you'll get a little light strike.
Yeah.
So if you can see them here, so 2 lines, 2 lines, up, strike, strike. So if I was on a bigger piece, I would do this, because you can obviously see a lot more clearness of the actual lightning strike. But on a small area, just line, line. Whereas on a bigger area, you can actually define it a little bit better, like that. That didn't quite work because I'm doing it upside down. So practice it a few times. When you think you're happy with it, keep the paint thin. So this is probably a little bit thick because you can see it, but you want it to appear kind of that consistency on the model, so you can see if it's worked or not. We are learning, so don't worry if it doesn't look right. If the paint is thin, you can repaint the face.
Yeah.
And so once you've got what you think looks right, so I'm going to take this one here. I think this one looks right. Keep my paint wet, and then I'm going to go back and do the same thing. Line, line over the top of it to bring in more depth of colour. And that's how we do tattoos. Even if you're doing a swirly tattoo, keep it quite thin. Do your swirl, practice it on cardboard, do your swirl, practice it on your palette, practice it on your hand somewhere, and then if you keep it faint and you mess it up the first time around and you think, oh no, I actually can't do this, it's faint enough that you can just go over with your flesh colour. They are not the easiest things in the world to do. If you practice it and go, actually no, I can't do it, practicing it, then don't do it.
Yeah.
But practice makes perfect, and practicing on a palette, any kind of technique, is really good. So even the edge highlighting is like, oh, I've got a palette here. Let's do some edge highlighting. Edge highlighting. Practicing on the edge of the palette. You can practice all your techniques on this without actually touching the model. And as everyone says, practice makes perfect. So right. So what colour do you want it to be? Do you want it to be a dark tattoo or?
Yeah, dark bluish, I think.
Dark bluish. I would say this one. Again, because it's a tattoo. Tattoos have a certain colour behind them. They're very matte. I've got a fair few to account to that. So really thin paint. Mine was probably a little bit too thick. So have a play on the palette. tell me what you show me when you finish and you think you're happy, and then we'll go with that. What have we got? We've got a red tongue.
We've got a red tongue and a bit of black.
Oh, you've done some black around it. Yeah, cool. Oh, he looks scary. Mean. Urgh. So what we were talking about this off camera, and I can see she's done it well, is rather than paint here, because this is a feathery beast, we do this with the paint. We feather the paint. It's called feathering. Feather the paint on a little bit. So you can paint the edges, but then once you've got the edges in, kind of feather it on, and it'll create a more natural look. If you get a reference material for an owl or something which is feathered and look at the actual feathers, there is patterns overall, but they're not clear patterns. They're a bit more randomised than you really think. And so if you do that, it creates more of a realistic look than if you actually paint the entire feather one colour. Feathers are not all one colour, they're splodgy. So if you look at the snowy owl in there, the splodges a bit randomised on it, and I can't remember whether I did it on the eagle in there or not, but the eagle that I'm painting at the moment, the home, is a bit more random as well. Nature does not like, it does but it doesn't like similarities. So the human face is not, if you look straight down the middle, it's not mirrored, and if you put something, if you mirror a human face and look at a mirrored human face, it looks wrong. Nature likes to be a bit more off. So if you're too perfect, it doesn't look right. So always keep that in mind when you're doing stuff. So what we need to do next with you, what do we want to do next? I would probably wash the beak. Just to, again, it's nice as it is, but to give it a bit of depth.
Yeah.
Or you could either use the brown wash, or you could use that again straight out the top. This is one of my favourite ones. So don't be precious about a paint company, a paint scheme, but I am really liking these at the moment. There's some really nice paints in there. So I was going to do some silver, and yes, I got silver out, that's what I was going to do. Do some edge highlighting with silver, just down at the bottom, and do the wheel. Something about the bottom of this model is bugging me a little bit. Can't work out what it is. I think it's a little bit too monotone. A little bit monotone, a little bit less monotone, a little bit more interesting there. Kind of. See if we just can kind of do something like that. Ba-dum. Looks a little bit better. A little bit more black on that bit, but alright, let's fix this tyre. We've got silver out, let's fix this tyre. So the tyre has like metal treads going around the outside of it, so I'm just going to paint those silver. Nothing special. I will probably give them a black wash afterwards, black or brown wash afterwards to give it a dirtiness to it, as we're trying to not make a clean model here. The joys of not making a clean model is you can be even less accurate.
That's alright.
Right, so look at that. Ooh, standing on things. Yeah. Yeah. You see, you can see as with really thin paints, you get the outlines on it. Don't worry about that because you're obviously going to go over it a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some really good ones on here. So yeah, if you can do some of the good ones on there on his face, I think they'll look quite good. Some people like to paint the tattoos before they do the rest of the shading on the faces. Some people do it afterwards because they've got that control over their highlights and shading and stuff. I will probably paint it on first and then shade the face as I go along afterwards, because I will mess it up otherwise. Have you done the wash?
Yeah. I just thought I could do some more on the base.
Yeah,
Some grays
wash.
and browns.
Yeah, dry brush it first.
Yeah.
Maybe a dark colour, grey.
Oak skin.
Oxygen. Ox again, and not green. What?
That's great.
Yeah, it's old fantasy, it's not modern Games Workshop fantasy, so it's Tolkien-esque stuff. Yeah, Games Workshop made Orcs green. Yeah, so dry brush it. Or you can again, with that brush, because it's kind of got a bit mental, you can even do a bit of stabbing and a bit of dry brushing just to, again, nature is not cohesive, it's randomised. Now there are some people who like to paint their bases separately, or do them while they're on the model, or do them first, and all sorts of different ways. Whatever fits your painting style, I will paint them, I will get the model, I'll build the base while the model is on the base. So if there's, if it's like trying to stand in water, not water, if it's trying to stand in dirt and things, I can put the sand around the actual feet and get things in the right position. If he's kind of probably going to be on a city base, I probably will have him off the base while I paint the model. It all depends on kind of what I'm doing, really. And what you're trying to achieve with your own models as well. I find that if I put the model on the base and glue him to a base, and then paint him, and then try and make the base afterwards on the base that he's just done. So like this guy. So I wanted to put some sand on this base. As he's now painted, I put the sand on, I then have to paint the sand, and it could then affect the paint job that I've just done. Because I've put the sand on first, and then when he gets undercoated, at least the sand is then sealed on properly. I can kind of keep in mind that it's there and that I won't have to paint around an already finished paint job. Other people would be quite happy to put sand on this and then paint it as it is. But again, it's kind of up to you what feels comfortable with you. I've missed a bit of silver. Yeah, this silver's going to need a bit of I think a brown wash on it to keep it in.
Smaller deadly brush to get in between.
Yes, I had one which I was using to do it. Oh, I did that one. That one might work. Don't ever throw away old brushes, because they're useful for dry brushing. Once you've knackered a brush, you can use it for dry brushing or base coating. So until it's actually just really fallen apart, I generally keep them. So right, we had that brown wash. That's shadow. Is it over here? Right. Let's try this again. Right, brown wash on the wheel. I'm going to have to use this one. Big. I'm making them dirty and rusty. And do this, and then a bit more silvers. There. Come on. Let's try something a bit weird. Wash and silver. Let's make that sword stand out a little bit. just mixed in a little bit of the brown wash with the silver. So I've not done much mixing of paint here, I've just literally used the paint out of the pot. But this saw, I think, needs a bit of silver on it just to make it look more like a saw than a random piece of rusty metal. And same on the hammer. Just make it a different colour to the body of the actual robot himself. Right. Other than changing the leather on this, I would call that done. So, do I want to go for lighter leather or darker leather? Light or dark leather on the strapping on his head, because it looks like the same colour as the rest of the model.
Yeah, slightly darker, I'd say.
Cool. Right. Let's try cobalt red, a nice maroon colour. This may not work. I may now just ruin the model. There's a point in there were like a couple of stages in model painting that you go through. You get your model, you make it, you go, oh, that's amazing, it's going to look brilliant. You base coat it, and then you go, oh, I can't see any of the detail, this is going to be really, really hard. And if you're going to do a zenithal highlight, then you go, oh, I can see all the detail, it's going to look amazing. You put your base coats on, and you go, it's the crap stage now, I don't like this. And you'll go through a stage where you just hate your model and you want to give up on it, and it just doesn't look right. And then you'll throw a wash on it, or you'll paint a certain point on the model, and you'll suddenly go, actually, yes. So for most of this, I thought it was alright, it was going well, wasn't happy with the strap, and I wasn't happy with the bit underneath the colours I've done on this chest. But now I've actually kind of done a bit of edge highlighting with silver on there, and I'm going to change the colour on the straps. It will probably look a little bit better, and I've just brightened up the hammer and the saw. And again, these little tweaks that suddenly go, actually no, this model does look good. And it's pushing past the point of going, this is crap, this is crap, this is crap, I hate this is awful. And it's the phrase of, finish it, don't worry about it being perfect. You're never going to get a perfect model. I know the competition painters like Angela Heraldez and Tommy Sewell and David, like I can't now remember the name of, and Dave Evans from Heavier Metal and stuff. They will always find faults somewhere within their models. And these guys have been commission painters, are commission painters, and they can charge hundreds of pounds for a single model. But they will never think a model is perfect. And there is no perfection, because everybody has their own different ideas. Just go to the point where you are happy with it, and you know your skill level can take you to that point. As I say, finish the model. And it will be a learning experience whether you hate it or not. It's a learning experience, and take what you've learned as to why you hate that model, why you didn't enjoy painting it. Maybe you just don't enjoy painting. I know people like that. They have hundreds of armies that are all grey, and it's all sad. But they don't enjoy painting, and that's fine. Some people don't. For me, I enjoy it. Yes, this is a much better colour. Even though it says it's a red, it's actually a nice kind of deep maroon, kind of horse tan, dark brown horse colour, I think. It'll probably look quite good on some horses. Right. Have you done that tattoo then?
Yeah, it's ended up less of a lightning bolt, but I still like it.
Well, maybe it's a random magical scar that he got from being attacked by somebody. Or it's a runic symbol from his own tribe or something.
Not quite sure what the backstory is.
Is he going to be your character for...
No.
No, because he's not got two shields.
Yeah.
It's weird how monks can be, and priests can actually be really tanky. Right, I think I think we're done with that. That is much nicer. I'm much happy with that brown. There we go. That is actually completed the model for me. There's one other thing I want to do because it's bugging me. Again, don't have to do this, but it's bugging me specifically. You probably won't notice it, but for me, it's annoying me. And it's just the chest piece is a little bit flat. So it needs a little bit of depth with a bit of a black wash. And then we're done with this guy. And then we can concentrate more on these two. Have you done the dry brushing? Cool. The dry brushing, I would now then give it a wash. So you can use a black wash, you can use one of the brown washes. Yeah. So just kind of making this one pop a little bit more. And this guy's going to pop a little bit more. There we go. Done. There we go. That took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, but he is now done. Let's put him down there. For me, that is done. So, we'll go through it in a bit, but right, so let's have a look at your tattoo, or your strike on this face. Even though it's not a lightning bolt, it actually, it looks more like a tribal symbol. It probably looks a lot better than a lightning bolt. Yeah. It's just very generic, so if you can kind of zoom in on the head, you can see there's actually a couple of layers. You can actually see the difference in the actual thicknesses of the paint. And I find that works really well for a tattoo, because tattoos bleed out. They're not always really nice fine lines, and especially if you're looking at a fancy kind of tattoo, unless it's kind of maybe magically imbued onto him, the colours will bleed because the techniques won't be as good. But I think that's made him really pop. And I think it's actually made him quite stand out. Yeah. With that. So what I would do now is the base. I would, because there's a bit of red on this. And there's a bit of brown from the boots. Give it a colour of grey. Have you got a grey over there? You've got a grey primer. Yeah. Let's have a look at that grey primer. Is that right? Yep. Just paint that on it, and then we'll give it a wash, and then maybe a dry brush, and he'll be done as well. Sweet. And then the one thing I always do with bases is I'll show you what we do with bases. Is I find the black. Always, whenever you finish a base, always paint the rim of a base. Especially with, once the whole model's finished, get a little bit of black paint and paint the rim of the base. Otherwise it looks unfinished. Because you'll have paint hanging over the edge of the base. So I'll always, this guy hasn't got a base at the moment. Actually, you know what, I can paint some freehand on the base, but I think we need to, I can keep going for hours, so I could keep just painting and painting and painting and adding extra bits into it. But we'll leave it as is. So he'll have a, I will always just do the rim with some black paint, just to make it finish, make it look neat and tidy. So he's just paint the entire base black. So we're done with that. Yeah. That's worked really well. We'll get the hot gun on it in a second, dry that out, and then we'll just do the base. Do the black base, and then that will be finished. Yeah. Unless you want to do the eyeballs. Yeah. I would take that. There's a black which I've got. Where have I'll just put the black somewhere. What have I done with it? It's there. What we do with eyeballs. There is a couple of ways to do them. There is obviously you just get your brush and you do a point, a swatch. There's another trick way to do it. I would do a swatch on that because those eyeballs are quite big. But the other way, what I'll do is I'll paint an eye on here and show. So, one of the ways you can do it, so there's some paint, let's make an eyeball, and let's get some black. I've got some black over here, so that's alright. So, okay, so before we do that, I can show you some ways to do the eye. So, say this is my eye here. That's quite a large eye. That's a bit too large for that, but let's make that a bit smaller. Let's do another one. So there's an eye. Probably the same size as what you've got there. So The problem with putting dots in the eye is you end up looking like that, or they go sideways. Getting the eye, the pupils, is really, really hard. You can usually get one in the right place, but getting the other one, especially on the matching, that one might not be too hard because the eyes are quite far forward. But when you've got eyes which are further around the head, or the head's at a weird angle, it can be quite hard to do that. So I'll come back in a minute and tell you how to do that. Okay, so what we're talking about is the eyes. So this is a really good technique, especially for cats and feline creatures. So we get our little splodge, which is our eye here, which is probably a little bit wet. And it works on all sorts of models, all sorts of things across whatever. Especially on really small models as well, where it is really hard just to kind of go with the thing. Is you get your eye, and let me hold this up and do it at the same time. We draw. I'm going to draw this on the side because it's easier than going straight up. You go straight through the eyeball, like this. You just go straight through it. Now obviously that does look like a bit of a cat, but if you go straight through it, before you've done any more shading on the eyes and on the rest of the face, you can then come around with whatever you want, whatever colour you want to kind of hide the black line on the rest of the model with the flesh colour. And then with the eye, is you then, rather than trying to create a point in there, you can then just kind of cover up the black to position it where you want to go. So go top, bottom, and then slowly come in. It's mixing up because I've not let it dry here. But as well, if you are going to do a blob, think about what your eye looks like and think about what animals' eyes look like. Is it actually in the centre? Not usually. It's usually slightly higher than the centre. So if you're going to put a blob of black in there for it, don't put it dead in the centre. Especially don't put it on dead in the centre of both eyes, because then it does just do that. But that's kind of one way to do it. The other way is obviously you get your splodge of an eye, really big eye, and then you just kind of go, I need a splodge of an eye there, and then you get an eye, and it looks like that, and it looks like an eye when you do it properly. So, give it a go. Have we painted it? Mm-hmm. Waiting for it to dry, or is it dry?
Yeah, a little bit.
Shall we blast it?
Shoot.
Oh, I can reach, honest. Quick one. Right, and I'm going to give you my.
It's a bit soft. Leave it for
Leave him for a minute to cool down. We're going to use normal oil, like the magic paint. Just because showing another colour, I suppose. Normal oil, magic paint. This one does not stay open, so we do need to prop it open with another paintbrush. Right, yeah. And I have, as you can tell, I've thrown this one everywhere because the paint pot is messed up. Right, so this guy, still drying a little bit. There we go. He's done. And if you do mess up eyes, you can obviously always go over them. They're not the easiest things. People hate them. But yeah, so that's the little crippling done. It has gone on a lot longer than we've been talking and just kind of been working things out. If I was to paint this without talking and doing other stuff, it's probably about half the time to do it, I reckon. But we've got 3 different models going on here, 3 different styles, showing lots of different techniques.
A little bit crazy.
Yeah, and there's loads of information out there on YouTube as well. There's loads of other painters out there. Have we done the eyes? Let's see Gribbly eyes. Yeah, they're right in the right place as well. Gribbly eyes, there we go. Owlbear. He's going to come and munch you. So what we're going to do now, the last thing to do is yeah. So here you can, he's inset on a base. I would also probably paint to do the top bit as well. So there you go. And then the same thing will happen on that. We don't need to do any more than just the ink on that, and then just put some black on the rim. And then it'll all be done. This is not just a black ink, it is the most useful thing in the world for beginner painters. This and Agrax Earthshade, I think, are two of the best things for beginner painters, because it means you don't have to learn to shade properly. And they're just really, I use it quite regularly, like I was doing with the thin black paint. I will use it to draw in, to paint in shades. On there, if I'm doing an army, painting an army quickly, I will do the base colours like we've done here with Josh, and then I'll just wash it over with Agrax and wash it over with Milne oil, leave it to dry in instant shades, done. So, we need the black for you.
Yeah. Just a dribble.
Just a dribble. Do the rim the base, and that'll be it. So even though this has gone on for quite a long time, generally they don't actually take this long. But yeah,
Doing other stuff, aren't we?
we've been doing other stuff. I don't know how many paints I've used on this. I've used quite a few, I think. We used Dwarven Bronze. We used both of them. Oh, we'll stop a second. No. We've got Silver Dragon. We've got some blues. So we've probably used about 10 or 12 paints on this. Which is about average. So you can boot it less. I added in the yellow and the stripes and stuff to make it pop, and the eye, the goggles as well to pop it. You don't have to add those things in if you don't want to. But yeah, we will have a fighter with his little crippling helpman in a minute fighting an owlbear. I think I know who my money's on. So when the bases are done. So yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I use my Facebook mainly for it. I've not had much time to do much painting at the moment, so if you want to check me out, find me at Rising Sun Painting Studios on Facebook. This has been run by the nice guys down at Critit, so check them out as well. Obviously you probably already know who they are because this is on their website. But yeah, they've got some. Their new animal companions are really nice little models. There's some really nice detail in there. Really enjoyed painting them. The campaign is still up and running, so go check them out. It's £40, no, £40 for 25 models now, which is a really good bargain. So here we go. This is what we've done today. I think I know who's going to win this fight, but there we go. Hope we've learned something. Hope we've had a bit of fun. Thank you very much.